right, so welcome back to Pink Couch Conversations with Dio. This is Julia. I'm going to give Julia a chance to introduce herself. You can share your name, your law school, if you want to share your law school, and what's your favorite thing about being a woman in law is. And if the answer is nothing, that's completely fine.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Julia. I'm a 2L at Berkeley Law. And my favorite thing about being a woman in this field is definitely just the community. I feel like historically and like statistically speaking, it's always been dominated by like men, particularly like white men.
Yeah.
So just to know that like, okay, there's more women in the field that I can relate to is very like uplifting and positive.
No, I love that. Okay, so I want to start with where you're from. I feel like when I first heard your story, I was like, I would never have expected that to be a part of your story. So like, who's your family? Where are you from? Like, what was your upbringing like?
Okay, cool. So I grew up in mid-city LA, which is kind of like Crenshaw area, inner city vibes. So like, it's not the nicest, but I think it like develops character and whatnot. And there's just like a big cultural like pot. So like you have like the Black community, the Latino community, and also Korean community.
Okay.
And so I feel like I got to experience a little bit of everything growing up. But my parents are actually immigrants. Okay. So my mom's from Guatemala and my dad is from Vietnam. Okay. So like I have like an Asian background and a Latino background, and even though those are like very different, like
very
values wise, I think my parents like met at a good medium. So they're always like, okay, like family first, health before school, like things like that. So
that's amazing. So what was the journey like being an undergrad, wherever you went to? Where did you go to undergrad?
Went to UCLA.
Okay, so you stayed in LA, so you were in LA for undergrad. What was your gap between undergrad and law school? Like, did you take a gap year? Did you go straight through?
Yeah, well, I took a gap year because like being first gen, I didn't really know like what I should be doing during undergrad. So it was like, okay, I gotta like take some time and like just plan this out well. So I did a gap year, I think it was like a year and a half or something, and honestly I just wanted to experience like a lot of things. I wanted to experience leaving California since I had always grown up in LA. I went to DC. So yeah, I ended up very different, like super cold, found out it was not for me, but I did like an internship at the Library of Congress. And so it was...
Oh, right, because when we went to DC, you had friends there.
Yes.
Oh, you met them during your gap year. Okay.
Yeah, so I went to DC and I worked at the Library of Congress in their like internship and fellowship programs division. And it's basically just like introducing kids to the idea of like government work. So I worked a lot with like other first-gen students, first-gen graduates, low-income students, and kind of just getting them acclimated to like what does it mean to work in like the capital of the nation type of thing. So that was super cool, and I got to meet like a lot of people. And then after that, COVID hit. So I was like, there's no way I'm paying this rent and I'm staying in DC. Like I'm going back home. So I went back home, internship ended, and I ended up working with the Department of Agriculture, doing just like programming stuff, like grant stuff relating to like rural communities and getting them food in their schools and like things of that sort. So very big, like broad array of stuff, but like being first gen, I was just like, you know what, like whatever opportunity comes, I'm just gonna take it and like try things out. But I always knew that like I wanted to go to law school. So there was like that time limit.
That makes a lot of sense. I just realized I didn't explain how me and Julia know each other, but me and Julia obviously go to the same law school, but we got to know each other more because we're at the same firm this summer. I was in the SF office, she was obviously in the LA office, and so we got to hang out in DC. We had like a little like firm retreat in DC. Like a 1L retreat. It was like a 1L retreat. And then we met again in LA, but we had like a West Coast.
I was pushing for that. I was like, we should have this.
And I don't know. People had their own little like regional thing. What about that? And that was really fun. Like I loved both trips were like perfect. Like they did a good job of planning those trips. So I got to know Julia a little bit more, even though we had gone to the same school for like a whole year. We didn't really talk much.
No, but I feel like I remember the moment I like met you because we both lived in the same like apartment complex. And I would see you every day, and I was like, ooh, her outfits are cute. And she yeah, it's a good vibe. Like, I always wanted to say hi, and then one day I was like, I'm gonna say hi today. I was like, hey, are you a Wano? And you're like, yeah.
You know, I don't know, it's funny. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to speak to me. Like, I feel like I do come off very, like, don't talk to me, leave me alone. So I feel like people who are able to, like, get past that barrier, I'm like, I trust you.
Yeah.
I just automatically trust people who are able to get past, like, my exterior, so.
Yeah. But yeah, like, literally from, like, the bus stop to, like, working to the same firm. That's crazy, huh?
Because you're not living in Mango anymore.
Not.
And I'm not either. We both left. Very much not, like, it's not a personality fit for us.
Exactly. No.
Okay. But I also noticed that when we had our initial conversation, and we were just talking in general, that we both had very different experiences of law school. Yeah. So I really want to hear, like, how's your experience been generally?
Okay.
And just, like, share what that's been like being a minority in that Berkeley law.
Yes. I feel like the way I think about law school, and hopefully, like, 3L, this will continue, but it's honestly just been, like, an upward trajectory. Wow. So, like, coming in, like, I was like, what am I doing? Yeah. Like, this is expensive. Am I supposed to be here? Right. But then over time, I kind of just, like, started meeting people and, like, going into groups. And I'm like, okay, like, they're reaffirming that, like, I do deserve a spot here. Like, I'm capable. Like, it's good. Right. So, like, I feel like over the long term, the year and a half, it's gotten better, but it's definitely taken, like, some just, like, mental talks with myself to, like, be like, okay, I'm meant to be here.
Yeah. So talk more about, like, how you found that community. Like, what did that community, because I know you have two very opposing identities, not opposing, like, different
very
identities.
Different. Yeah.
So, like, how did you form those communities?
Definitely. I think like, affinities for me have been, like, my safe haven at school. Like, it's where I've met all my, like, closest girlfriends, my friends, my mentors. And for me, it just really took, like, okay, I'm gonna commit some time out of my schedule to start attending these events and just, like, meeting people. And so for me at Berkeley, we have La Alianza, which is formerly known as La Raza, and that's what it's known at, like, multiple schools.
There's a journal called La Raza.
Yes,
they
kept the name. Okay. The name has, like, some, like, it's a little problematic. But, like, so it's a Latin American descent student group. So I gravitate more towards that because I'm just, like, more in tune with my Guatemalan side. But phenotypically, I definitely look, like, more Asian. Yeah, they're like, okay, that's a little weird. But I'm like, yeah, like, phenotypically more Asian, but I haven't really explored that part of my identity yet up until law school.
Wow.
So, like, this is the first year where, like, I'm actively involved in, like, a PULSA, which is another acronym. I don't know what it is. Asian American something law student, something like that. Yeah. I'm like, I'm such a bad Asian. But, like, this is the first year where I'm like, okay, like, let's explore, like, what it means to be, like, an Asian American woman in law. And so, I just kind of, like, found my groups, joined them. I'm also in, like, Coalition for Diversity this year. That's something that's, like, super important to me.
Emails. I'm like, what is that?
So we're trying to, like, start up again. There hasn't been that much of a focus on, like, what are we supposed to do. So this year we've, like, set goals and we're like, okay, like, let's uplift underrepresented minority students groups. Like, whether that be, like, financially or, like, assisting with events and things like that. So we're trying to get it started. But yeah.
I was gonna say my experience has been kind of different because I feel like I think LaSalle also did a very similar thing. The typical name for the Black Law Students Association is BALSA, and we call it LaSalle. I think LaSalle stands for Law Students of African Descent, to be more inclusive, just, like, not just because someone is, well, in my head this doesn't make sense, but just because someone's Black doesn't mean they not resonate, but, like, they, what is the word? Doesn't mean they, relate to.
Okay,
like, I get the word, like, Black, like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like as a Nigerian American, like, my immediate thought was someone asks us, like, what race are you, or, like, what ethnicity are you? I said I'm Nigerian. Yes. So I guess they wanted to, like, be more inclusive and include all, like, Black diasporic people. And so we have that same thing. But I think for me, I did the same thing of, like, oh, like, I'm going to go to all the events, I'm going to be super active. And I didn't have the same outcome. Like, I just didn't find the same, like, people. So it's, like, really interesting. You go to the same school, do the same thing, and, like, have a very different experience. So for me, it's, like, been looking outside of those spaces and trying to be friends with people who aren't Black, like, trying to find other people who, like, are just willing to, like, connect, whether they're Black or not. Like, that's been my challenge or my like invitation in law school. But I also resonate with what you said about like things have been getting better, because I think my first year was like incredibly difficult. I think more difficult than the average law students. And then this year, making that decision to be like, what worked, what didn't work, what do I need to stop doing? And I think making those decisions and like being okay with being by myself for a while, just to like find what my footing is, was a good idea. And it's hard and it's like terrifying. It's like you have to navigate law school by yourself for a minute, but like it all comes together at some point. At least you hope so. It comes together at some point. But I wanted to also ask, this might be you probably already answered this question, but like, what has kept you grounded? I think a lot of times in law school, we can like be in our heads, like you talked about, like feel like you don't belong. But what has kept you grounded and made you like really believe like this is my place? I'm gonna find my footing at this law school with these people.
Yeah. I feel like there's different elements to like answer that question, but I feel like just what keeps me grounded is like family and my like just like all the stuff that I've been throughout life. Like I'm like, okay, like where I am now is something that like someone else is like dreaming and like praying about.
That's the
you
thing.
know?
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate. Like I grew up low income. Like we were in a small ass apartment growing up. Like my parents did everything to make sure that there was a roof over our head. But like now I'm like at an amazing law school. I have amazing friends. I have food on the table. Like I think that's literally what keeps me grounded. I'm like, yeah, like it sucks to read like 100 pages a night, but that's like the to me at least. Like seeing how hard my parents work, I'm like, this is the easiest thing I can do. Like literally read. Like this is not manual labor, and I don't know if that's just like a way for me to like justify it in my head and to cope exactly. But like that's what I think about. I'm like the life I'm living now is something that like I could have never imagined when I was younger, and it's something that like other women in like undergrad or high school or whatever are dreaming of. So I kind of just use that to like ground myself and like really, I don't know, just like inform the way I work like on a day-to-day basis.
I feel like it's like gratitude.
Exactly.
Like it's,
yes, that's true. I'm like, I can't English right now.
No, literally, I'm struggling. But it's like being grateful for where you are, even if there's like messy, chaotic parts in the where you are. Like that's the thing. So I appreciate you sharing that. I know we talked about when we had like our first conversation about like how it's been being a child of immigrants in law school. So a lot of law students at Berkeley, this is not really a big thing that happens, but like a lot of law students have parents who have been lawyers or who have gone to law school. So they kind of in our heads we think they have a leg up. How is being a child of immigrants not having parents who like have a graduate school degree? How has that made it difficult? Like whatever. How has that experience been for you?
I feel like even stemming back undergrad, I feel like higher ed, at least in like the United States, has like a hidden curriculum to it. And there's a lot of like nuances that you might not know. Like if it wasn't for my high school teacher having a day where she brought all the parents to the library and everyone fill out FAFSA at the same time, like I would have not known that was an option. Like that's where I come from. Like college is not the norm. And so I just feel like being a child of immigrants, you kind of just have to like figure out things and hope that there's someone there to like help you sometimes, and you also have to know like when to ask for help. I feel like that is something that like I had to learn like super early on, just because like there's so many hidden things you don't know until you ask or until you have to like face it and figure out yourself. And so I feel like because of that, I've always kind of been on autopilot, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do now, this is what I'm going to do next, and it's always been like step by step. I don't know if that answers the question.
It does. And it also leads to my next question, because I was wondering, I was going to ask why you created Asian Latina, your Instagram page, but I'm realizing that a lot of people have created like law school platforms for this very reason. That we don't know what we're doing, and no one is telling us. We don't know where to go for this information. So if you don't have a law student, a parent that's a lawyer, or if you don't have a parent that like went to grad school and understands the method to get there, like you really are like shooting in the dark, and you can make a lot of expensive mistakes. A lot of expensive mistakes.
I know. I'm like, why is like 3 years of law school equivalent to a house? Like that makes no sense. Like, why is it like that? And that's literally why like I started my Instagram page. It's more of like a digital diary, I would say, but it kind of just shows you like, okay, this is what law school is like if you want to like fully commit yourself to being a student, but also there's a life outside of that. So I feel like it's like an even medium of those two, but it's definitely brought me like a lot of joy. Like I have like undergrad students DMing me and they're like, hey, can we like jump on a Zoom call? I know. And so like I had one of those last week and I was like, okay, this is why I'm doing it. Because when I talk to those students, I'm like, I was literally in your shoes a couple years ago and I know how stressful this is. So let me just take like an hour of my day, sit down and reassure you that like this is going to be okay and that there's like good on the other side after all these struggles and like challenges.
I definitely agree. I feel like you do a really good job of like showing that balance, and that's why it's this title, Living Your Best Life. In law school with Julia, I feel like you do really exemplify like work hard but like play hard and like you have that balance. We're also in the same clinic, which I don't think we've talked about. Like we have a lot. Like,
we have a lot
in common. But yeah, I just love that you have that platform because I feel like it does also give you space to be creative.
It does,
which I think is
necessary. It is so necessary. Like the reality of law school is like you're sitting there with a casebook or your iPad, whatever you read off of, and you're staring at 12-point font every single day for hours on end, reading like these boring cases. Like there's no room for creativity. Like the most creative thing you can get is like a picture of like a justice like every so often. So I feel like Instagram is my way of like expressing myself and kind of like romanticizing studying.
I love that.
Because that's the only way I'm gonna get through it. So
okay, so we're talking about we have a lot in common. We all we talked about we both were at a firm together. I don't think we should name the firm. I think we're gonna leave.
You're gonna leave. I
talked about the firms people already probably know, but like you have to go dig to find that.
I'm like, do your research.
We're that serious. We're that committed. But we're at the same firm. How was your experience at this firm? Like I'm really curious because we were in different offices. So I'm just curious.
I mean, I really loved it. I really felt like, wow, like, these are my people and this is my dream job. But it took a lot to get there. So, like, I don't know. I've, like, just from Instagram and, like, Reddit and things like that, I'm like, okay, like, this is a very white space. This is my first time in corporate America. I want to make sure that wherever I go, I can be, like, 100% myself. And so I stuck to that during the interviews. And it was, like, some rejection, some acceptance. But I'm like, okay. At least the places that accepted me are like places where I can be my whole self.
That's true.
So, I just kind of like, it's been a journey, but I think having those criterias and like those things that I wanted at a place where I was gonna work have like set me up kind of like for success. And so everyone I met at the firm is super sweet. Like everyone knows I'm first gen. Like I'm like, you guys, I don't know. Like you're asking me these questions. Give me some grace because like I'm trying to figure it out. And so I just feel like it's such a supportive community, and when I got the offer, I was like, this feels right. Like just in my gut, I was like, I feel like at peace talking to these people. And that's something I didn't experience with other firms. Like when I talked to them, I was like, what's going on? I know, I'm like, you can get a rejection from me. So, like, I don't know. It was just like this internal feeling of like, this is where I'm meant to be. And then when I was there in the summertime, like everyone was so helpful. Like, there's glass doors so you can see everyone's office, but like literally like, it's a little different. But it's an open door policy where I can just like walk in, ask people questions, people sit down, talk to you about like their life experiences. So I just feel very welcomed and like super happy to be there.
I agree. I completely agree. I applied to about like 50 to 70 firms, and I already told this story on my channel before, but I only got an offer from Pillsbury, and I honestly got an offer from Pillsbury after they had like chosen someone else. And then that person, like,
I did not know that.
And that person like said never mind, and then they like came back to me. But also like I was like keeping a list of, I have like an Excel spreadsheet, like all the firms. Like after I would like do an interview with them, I would like make a note of like how I felt after. So I feel like that's really hard for me to remember. Is like how did I actually feel? And I remember looking at like Pillsbury is the only like firm that I like wrote like a long like, oh my god, I love them. There's like this feels right. Like, but then I didn't get an offer first, so I was like, oh, this doesn't make sense. Like, that felt like
it's really so arbitrary. That's why.
It's so arbitrary. You can have the best grades, they won't pick you. Like it's really a personality thing.
I think it is because I'm like, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't get a single H.
No, same.
So like, and I'm like, what about these students?
Yeah.
I'm like, so I think it is like a personality fit. It's so like, it's like a black box. You have no idea
You
like
have no
what's
idea
going on. But you ended up there, and that's
but
what
I ended
matters.
up there, and it's like, yeah, like, I don't know. I think my point of that story was just like, you will get where you need to go.
Yeah.
Like, even if it looks like darkness and abyss. I remember, I don't know how you felt during your like interview process for 1L positions, but like it was really hard for me. Like I was like crying every week. Like when you get rejection, it's not fun.
No one, or at least I wasn't prepared.
I wasn't either.
Like we have to interview during class.
Exactly.
I was like, who designed this program? Like it's such a mess. And so like there's just a lot of things that you don't know until you're like actually doing it. Or like 5-hour interviews. Like what?
Like, no one tells you these things. No one tells you have to give up your entire winter break to apply for these things. No one told me that. No one told me that we would have to be interviewing during class or like during school time. Mm-hmm. And then also I was not prepared to be on Zoom for 3 hours talking. And like, because you know when you're interviewing someone, you have to stay up.
Yeah.
You have to stay on.
Yeah.
And that's really exhausting.
It is. It's a lot of like emotional, mental, and honestly physical. Like sitting there talking for 3 hours, answering questions.
Never mind.
No, but it like honestly like the job situation in law school is very stressful, and for me like I was so happy for everyone else getting jobs. I'm like, hey, whatever, like let it be. But I could not look at LinkedIn.
Yeah,
like,
I didn't even post mine.
I was like, how are people getting job offers before we have grades?
Yeah.
The key to that is networking.
Yeah,
that's not something in my nature. Yeah, so like I was like, I'm just gonna do this how I think it's gonna go. But it was really stressful. Yeah. It really was. Like I don't think people talk about that they don't. Like openly. They're just like, I'm humbled and honored that I received this. And I'm like, okay, but like,
but you probably cried every single week. So
exactly.
It was probably a hard, like tumultuous time for you. Tell the truth.
Yes.
I also wanted to ask you about imposter syndrome, because even though an environment can be inviting and welcoming and helpful, they also had the same experience at our firm where like people were willing to talk about things other than work. Like they're actually willing to talk about their lives and like their families and like things they love, things that they're passionate about outside of the law. But it's not always a common thing. But I think so. Work in big law, because when we were 1Ls when we started, so like you're coming in and you don't know anything. Yeah. So like my question is, did you struggle with imposter syndrome, like when they were giving you assignments, where you're just like, what do you want me to do here?
Yeah. I mean, 100%. Yeah. I think also the fact that like I've never worked in a big law environment was really scary. So I was like, what am I getting myself into? And I honestly think it goes back to what I said earlier, just ask questions. Yeah. Like I remember I had this one like M&A assignment, and they're like, you're gonna look for blank type provisions, and I was like, what does that mean? Like I was like, a what? Yeah. You know, and like I literally had to ask. I was like let's remember, I'm a 1L. Yeah. I haven't taken M&A or business associations. Yeah. Like, can you explain this concept to me? And like people were so welcoming. Like they were writing on the board. Like they were teaching me like contracts and stuff. So I think it's just like a matter of like owning the fact that you don't know something, really and that's okay. Yeah. Like no one has the answers to everything. And I think in the legal field, it's like it might be seen as like
weakness or
something like that, but I'd rather ask a question and get the answer that they want than F up and then
now they know. Sorry.
I know.
Like it is better to like just be honest. Yeah,
like,
so honesty is a key. Like just like I just don't know.
Exactly. And then when I did get into those situations where I was like, like am I really meant to be here? I like learned from another mentor that a good exercise is to like write down your accomplishments and just remind yourself that like you didn't land here by chance. You worked hard.
You worked hard. Yeah. You absolutely worked hard. Okay, so I have 2 more questions. Well, 3 more questions. One of my questions that I want to ask is, if you could do 1L over again, what would you do differently?
Yes. I feel like my answer to this is gonna change like every single time it's asked. But what would I do differently? I think, first of all, I would like study less and like live more in the moment, like really practice being present, because I feel like sometimes I was out with friends, but my mind was always like, I should be reading or I should be doing this, and I feel like that isn't healthy to like dedicate your entire self to like one thing like that. So definitely study a bit less and enjoy life a little bit more, which is something that like I've been trying to practice more now. And honestly, something that like I didn't take into consideration is implement exercise more.
Okay.
Because I feel like I was just sitting down for hours on end, and like my back should not be hurting at this age.
We're only like, how old are you, 24?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah. Like we're young.
Yeah.
So
we're
like,
kids.
why is this happening to me?
Yeah.
So definitely like live in the moment more, and also like be a little bit more active.
Yeah.
This question reminded me of like something our 1L civil procedure professor asked us. She was like, what do you enjoy doing the most during your spare time? And for me, that's roller skating.
Okay.
And then I think she asked us like, did you get to enjoy that during 1L? And I was like, and I told you earlier, I'm like, I left my roller skates at home. So like, I did not. Yeah. So I just feel like trying to bring like more joy into that.
I love that. Another question I had for you. Oh, I was gonna actually comment on something that you said that was really. Oh, I was gonna ask, what does exercise look like for you? Like, are you a gym person, or are you like a run, like yoga, Pilates? Like, what is that like?
I feel like I'm like starting my health journey right now. So I'm doing like 3 times. What is it, like going into the gym 3 times a week? That's where I'm starting off. And like honestly, it's like just running on the treadmill. I can't do the outside, there's bugs. Like the climate doesn't stay constant. So for me, it's just like running on the treadmill, listening to like a really good album, or watching some like YouTube videos or something like that. And then this semester, my friends and I were like, oh yeah, like we cannot be sitting all day. Like we need something fun. So we started like a women's basketball group. So I do that on like Sundays, and we just like play basketball with one another. So it's like a nice way to like stay active, be with your friends, and not have to like worry about school at all. And you're just like having a really good time.
That's fun. I love that so much. Okay, I also want to ask you what your long-term career aspirations are. It's okay not to know, but I'm just like wondering.
Okay, good. Because I don't know. Like I have no idea, and I think that's the like thing about being first gen is like you just honestly have no idea. Like you have no idea what careers are out there until you start learning about them. And so I feel like I don't have an answer to that because I don't want to like box myself in to anything. And that was a question I got during my pills for. Oh, sorry. That was the question I got during the firm interview. They were like, where do you see yourself in like 5 to 10 years? And I answered honestly. I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the titles are at the firm. I don't know what the next steps are after being an associate. Like, because I did the research, but I just like don't know how logistically that works. So like I have no idea, but I hope to just like be helping others in achieving like whatever they want to achieve and just kind of like building community wealth. So I have no idea what I'm gonna be doing, but I hope that I'm like happy and like mentoring other students and just like living the life I want to live, living my best life or whatever.
No, I love that. I feel like I think you kept like bringing the interview back up. Like I feel like for me, I felt like I had to like not lie, but like hide parts of like who I was. Cause I would always bring up like the fact that we want to do entertainment law, but our firm does not do entertainment law at all. So I thought that was like a thing that I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. But it's good to like know that like you can actually be fully honest, and people who are for you will choose you with your honesty and not be like, oh, you should have lied so that we can choose you. Like you never want to be chosen like from a lie or from like you pretending or like leaving out important information about like what you actually want. So that's really important. I love that. Okay, so my last question for you is, what advice would you give to others who want to go to law school?
Okay. First of all, I think there's a lot of pressure of like having a timeline. Like, okay, we're gonna graduate high school, we're gonna get into a good undergrad, and then we're gonna go take the LSAT and apply to law school. Like, no, like it doesn't have to be that way. Everyone has their own journey, and it's okay to like take a couple of gap years off. I think it gives you a lot of time to reflect if that's something you really want to do, and it also gives you time to work and save a little bit of money. So like I think just remember like timeline is different for everyone, and if you have to take a gap year, that's totally fine. Second, like really do your research about the school. Like from just talking to my friends, I feel like I have a very different experience than other people. So you want to kind of get to know like the students and ask them like, do you really like your law school experience? Like, do you feel like there's competition at school? Like, what is the whole like 1L vibe. Is
Yeah.
it competitive? Is it friendly? Is it not? Are there grades? So just like do your research and try to find a school that fits for you, because you're gonna be there for 3 years.
Exactly.
And you don't want to be miserable.
Yeah, it's an expensive like place to be miserable.
Yeah.
It's not a space where you like want to just like stay there just because you're like a law student. I love the point you made about like timeline, because my timeline, I definitely had that very much like, I want to do this, don't do that, I want to do this. But I took a forced gap year because I applied, I already talked about this, but I applied to 5 schools, didn't get to any of them, so I had to take a gap year.
Okay.
And so during my gap year, I started the Black Enneagram, but the Black Enneagram is what got me into law school.
Yeah.
So like you never know what could happen through your in your gap year if you take that time. It could actually be the thing that catapults you into like your dream school, your dream environment. So like I feel like a lot of people are afraid of like taking time off. Like, oh, I'll never go back. Actually, there might be things that happen to you in your gap year that like give you more motivation to go to law school.
I agree.
I've heard that a lot from a lot of people, that they like thought it wasn't going to be like that. If they don't go now, then they'll never go. But that's just not true. Like if it's a real true passion of yours, like the universe will find a way. God will find a way to like bring that like desire back up in you, and give you like a path to law school.
Yeah.
So,
And then you mentioned the term dream school.
Yeah.
I think that even if you don't have the grades, you might not have the LSAT score, like whatever, like use the application to advocate for yourself and make sure that essay is literally like the best thing you've ever written, because like if you don't have the scores, that's fine. Like they might like you as a person and they'll let you into the school, because I feel like that's what happened. I'm like I am not in that percentile, but I'm so though. So,
Like,
so just like shoot your shot. Exactly. Like you never know. It's a black box. When it comes to firms, when it comes to law school, like just shoot your shot and hope for the best. Like don't say no to yourself. Like the least you can do is apply.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a great way to end. I'm gonna stop there. Thank you so much, Julia, for this conversation. This was great. I cannot wait to share this with everyone.